that we should not be angry with people and what people account great and small. The cause of our assenting to the truth of something is that it appears to be fact, and it is impossible to assent to anything that does not appear to be fact. Why? It is the mind's nature. It will assent to the truth, reject what is false, and suspend judgment in doubtful cases. Here, I will prove it to you. Feel, if you can, that it is night right now. Impossible. Don't feel that it is now day. Impossible. Feel or don't feel that the number of stars is 7. Impossible. So when someone assents to a false proposition, be sure that they did not want to give their assent, since, as Plato says, every soul is deprived of the truth against its will. They simply mistook for true something false. Now, with respect to our actions, the case is analogous. Only instead of true and false, we react to impressions of right and wrong, good and bad, honest and dishonest. And it is impossible to think that an action will do us good and not choose to do it. What about Medea? Though she who says, I know that the acts I intend are wrong, but anger is the master of my intentions. That only amounts to saying that she thinks gratifying her anger by exacting revenge on her husband is preferable to keeping her children safe. Yes, but she is in error. Well, demonstrate to her clearly that she is in error, and she will not act on her idea. As long as you don't lay it out for her, though, she has nothing besides her own idea of right and wrong to guide her. So don't get angry at the poor woman for being confused about what's most important, and accordingly mutating from human being to snake. Pity her instead. We take pity on the blind and lame. Why don't we pity people who are blind and lame in respect of what matters most? Whoever keeps in mind that our actions are all determined by our impressions, which can either be right or wrong. Now, if the impression is correct, we are innocent, but if it is incorrect, we pay for it ourselves, since it is impossible that someone else should be penalized for our error. Whoever keeps this in mind will not be angry or upset with anyone, won't curse, blame, resent, or malign anyone either. So in your view, great tragedies are merely the result of this, somebody's impression? The result of that, and that alone. You take the Iliad. It's nothing but people's impressions and how they dealt with them. An impression made Paris rob Menelaus of his wife, and an impression got Helen to run away with him. Now, if an impression had come to Menelaus that perhaps he was better off losing such a wife, well, that would have meant the loss to us, not just of the Iliad, but of the Odyssey as well. So you're saying that matters so great owe their origin to something so trivial? But what do you mean by matters so great? Wars, factions, the loss of many men, the razing of cities? Tell me what's so great about all that. What's so great about slaughtering many sheep or cattle, or burning a lot of storks or swallows' nests? Can you really compare the two? Why not? In the one case, human bodies are lost, In the other case, the dead happen to be farm animals. People's houses burn, so do storks' nests. What's so earth-shaking or awful in that? Show me how a house, considered merely as a shelter, is better than a stork's nest. How can a stork be compared with a human being? Where the body is concerned, there is lots of similarity. Only, in man's case, his body inhabits houses composed of bricks and timber, while storks' nests are made of sticks and mud. So, is there no distinction between a person and a stork? Of course there is, but not in regard to these externals. Reflect and you'll realize that man excels in other respects, in taking cognizance of his own behavior, in being sociable, trustworthy, and honorable, in learning from his own mistakes in brains. What counts as good and bad for man can be found precisely in those respects in which he differs from the beasts. If his special qualities are kept safe behind stout walls, and he does not lose his honor, trustworthiness, or intelligence, then the man is saved. But lose or take away any of these qualities, and the man himself is lost. Everything significant depends on this. Did Paris's tragedy lie in the Greeks' attack on Troy when his brothers began to be slaughtered? No. No one is undone by the actions of others. That was the destruction of storks' nests. His tragedy lay in the loss of the man who was honest, trustworthy, decent, and respectful of the laws of hospitality. Wherein did Achilles' tragedy lie? The death of Patroclus? Not at all. It was that he gave in to anger, that he whined about losing a mere woman, and lost sight of the fact that he was there not for romance, but for war. Those are the genuine human tragedies. The city's siege and capture, when right judgments are subverted, when thoughts are undermined. Women are driven into captivity, children are enslaved, and men are put to the sword? Is none of this bad? What's the basis for adding that description? Let me in on it too. Why don't you explain instead how they are not evils? Let's return to our standards, produce our preconceptions. I mean, this is what flabbergasts me. If there's a question about weight, we don't formulate a judgment at random. If it's a matter of judging straight and crooked, we don't make our decision based on whim. If the truth of the case makes any difference to us at all, then none of us operates in the dark. Yet, when it comes to the first and foremost cause of good and bad conduct, when it's a matter of doing well or ill, of failure or success, only then do we proceed blindly and erratically. Only then are we found to lack anything like scale or measure. A sense impression appears, and right away I react. Am I better than Agamemnon and Achilles, insofar as they do and suffer such wrongs by following their impressions? Well, the impression does not satisfy me. Is there any tragedy with a different source? What is the Atreus of Euripides? An impression. The Oedipus of Sophocles? An impression. The Phoenix? An impression. Hippolytus? An impression. What kind of person, then, pays no attention to the matters of impressions, do you think? Well, what do we call people who accept every one indiscriminately? Madmen. And do we act any differently?